The rain had been falling for hours, soft but steady, coating the streets of downtown New York with a mirror-like sheen that reflected neon lights and hurried footsteps. In that blur of umbrellas and car horns, a man in a wrinkled brown jacket and scuffed boots stepped out of a black car parked discreetly in an alley. He looked like any other tired worker grabbing a late meal, but beneath the plain disguise was Ethan Cross, the elusive billionaire and CEO of Crosstech Industries, one of the most powerful companies in the world. No one knew his face without the polished suits, no one had ever seen him without the entourage. But tonight, he wanted to disappear, to breathe, to be human again, to remember what life felt like before the boardrooms and the billions. He pulled his hood tighter, shoved his hands into his pockets, and walked toward a small diner that glowed like a lantern in the dark. The sign above the window read, "Mabel's Grill, home of the best steak in the city." It was humble, ordinary, the kind of place where laughter echoed and time slowed down. And that's exactly what Ethan needed. Inside, the diner smelled of coffee, butter, and rain-soaked coats. The clinking of dishes filled the air, and behind the counter, a young woman moved gracefully between tables with a notepad and a tired but genuine smile. Her name tag read Lena. She was in her mid-20s, with chestnut hair tied in a messy bun and eyes that held both exhaustion and warmth. When she saw Ethan take a seat in the corner booth, she grabbed her pad and walked over. "Evenin', stranger," she said with a voice as soft as the hum of the jukebox. "What'll it be?" Ethan looked up, startled for a second. He hadn't expected kindness, not tonight. "Just steak," he replied, his voice low. "Medium rare." Lena grinned slightly. "Good choice. Comes with mashed or fries?" "Surprise me," he said, and she nodded before walking away. He watched her go, noticing how her shoes were worn at the edges, how her uniform sleeves were rolled up, revealing small scars near her wrist. She looked like someone who worked too hard for too little, yet smiled as if she carried a secret joy. While waiting, Ethan stared out the fogged window. His mind drifted to the meeting he had stormed out of earlier, board members arguing about profit margins while hundreds of workers faced layoffs. He had built his empire to change lives, but somewhere along the way, the numbers had become more important than the people. And now, sitting here in a diner that probably earned less in a month than he did in a minute, he felt the ache of emptiness settle in. He didn't want to be a name on a skyscraper anymore, he wanted to feel something real again. Lena returned with the plate, a thick, sizzling steak that smelled like heaven. She set it down with a smile. "Here you go. Careful, it's hot." Ethan nodded, picking up his fork. "Smells great." "It better," she said, laughing lightly. "That grill's older than I am." Her humor caught him off guard. He found himself smiling back. She lingered a moment, maybe sensing something different about him, but then turned away when another table called. Ethan cut into the steak, juicy, tender, perfect. But halfway through, he noticed something odd. When Lena refilled his coffee, she slipped something under his napkin. A folded piece of paper, small enough to hide in her palm. Their eyes met for just a second, and there it was, a flicker of something unspoken. He froze, staring after her as she hurried away. He unfolded the note discreetly. There were just a few words written in shaky handwriting. "I know who you are. Please, don't leave. I need your help." Ethan's heart thudded. He scanned the diner. No one was watching him. Lena moved between tables as if nothing had happened. Who was she? How could she possibly know his identity? He had come here in disguise, without security, without even his driver knowing the destination. For a moment, he considered leaving, but curiosity, that old spark that built empires, flared up inside him. He stayed. When Lena came to clear his plate, she didn't look him in the eye. "Another coffee?" she asked quietly. "Sure," he murmured. She poured, her hand trembling slightly. When she turned to go, he said softly, how long have you known? She froze mid-step, then forced a smile. Excuse me? He leaned forward. About me. Ethan Cross. The smile vanished. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to him. Not here, she whispered. Wait until my shift ends. Then she walked away as if nothing had happened. Ethan sat there for another hour, pretending to scroll his phone, pretending to be normal. Around midnight, the last customer left. The neon sign outside flickered. Lena locked the front door and turned the sign to closed. She hesitated before walking to his booth. Follow me, she said quietly. They slipped through the back hallway into the kitchen, where the lights buzzed dimly over stacks of dishes and an old radio played faintly. She leaned against the counter, her arms crossed. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice trembling now. If anyone knew what? Ethan interrupted gently. That I came to eat? She looked up at him, frustration flashing in her eyes. You don't understand. They've been watching you. The people running Crosstech. The ones you think are loyal, they're not. Ethan stiffened. What are you talking about? Lena reached into her apron and pulled out another folded paper. My brother worked for you, she said quietly. He was an engineer at your research facility upstate. 6 months ago, he disappeared after sending me a message saying he found something dangerous, something they were hiding from you. I tried to reach your office, your assistant, everyone. No one would listen. Then I saw the photo of you online, and tonight. I saw you walk in. I knew it was fate. He took the paper slowly. Inside was a blurry photo of a young man in a lab coat standing beside a strange-looking machine, something sleek, metallic, and covered with glowing circuits. This was taken 2 days before he went missing, Lena whispered. He told me he had proof that Crosstech was testing something illegal, something that could destroy lives. Ethan stared at the photo, his mind spinning. What was he working on? Project Seraph, she said. You've probably never heard of it. It's buried under other departments. But it's real, and it's dangerous. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. He had heard whispers of Project Seraph, a classified initiative buried in layers of corporate secrecy, supposedly scrapped years ago. But if Lena's brother had uncovered something. Why come to me? He asked. Because you're the only one who can stop it, she said, her voice breaking. You built this empire, Mr. Cross. You can expose what they're doing. I've tried everything else. For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain outside grew heavier, thunder rolling in the distance. Ethan looked at her, this tired, trembling waitress with fire in her eyes, and saw more truth in her than in all the men who surrounded him daily. If what you're saying is true, he said slowly, then you're in danger. I already am, she replied. We both are. Ethan folded the note, his decision made. Tomorrow, I'll come back, he said. Same time. You tell me everything you know. She hesitated, then nodded. Be careful, she whispered. They're always watching. As he turned to leave, she called out softly, Ethan? He looked back. Thank you, she said, her eyes glistening. For not walking away. He smiled faintly. I've been walking away from the truth for too long. When Ethan stepped out into the rain, his disguise felt meaningless. For the first time in years, he felt alive, not as the billionaire who owned the city, but as the man who might finally save something real. He didn't know that cameras across the street had already captured him, that men in dark suits were watching from a parked car. As the taillights of his car disappeared into the storm, one of them spoke into a radio. He took the bait, the voice said coldly. Initiate Phase 2. Back inside, Lena stood by the window, clutching the photograph of her brother. Her heart pounded as thunder rattled the diner's glass. She whispered to herself, Please, Ethan, find him before they find you." The morning light crept through the blinds of Ethan Cross's penthouse, painting long golden stripes across the marble floor. But the warmth of the sun couldn't touch the cold unease in his chest. He hadn't slept at all. Lena's words had looped in his mind like a haunting melody. "They've been watching you. Project Seraph, my brother disappeared." He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the photo she'd given him, the face of a young man, sharp, intelligent, determined. His name, according to the file Ethan dressed simply, jeans, a plain coat, the same disguise as last night, and slipped out of his penthouse through a private elevator. He told no one where he was going. As he drove through the city, his mind wrestled with questions that clawed at the edges of his calm. Who inside his empire could be hiding something so massive? Who had the power to bury an entire project, and a man, with it? The thought of betrayal sickened him. He had trusted his executives like family. But as the rain returned, tapping against the windshield, he realized trust might be a luxury he could no longer afford. When he reached Mabel's grill, it was nearly empty, the breakfast rush long gone. Lena was there, wiping tables and humming faintly. When she saw him, her eyes widened with a mix of relief and fear. "You came back," she said softly. "I said I would." He sat at the same booth. "Now tell me everything." Lena glanced toward the door, then pulled the blinds halfway down. "After my brother disappeared," she began, "I went through his apartment. He'd hidden a flash drive under the floorboard. It had encrypted files, designs, notes, voice memos. He mentioned a prototype that could control neural impulses remotely. He said it could heal damaged nerves, restore movement to paralyzed people, but in the wrong hands, it could control people's actions completely. He called it Project Seraph. Ethan's pulse quickened. He was working on Neuralink technology, he muttered. It was supposed to help soldiers recover from spinal injuries. But, it was shelved after safety issues. "No," Lena said firmly, "it wasn't shelved. They kept going. And when Daniel tried to report the risks, they shut him down. That's when he vanished." Ethan sat back, the weight of guilt pressing down on him. All this had been happening under his name, and he'd been blind to it. "Do you still have that flash drive?" he asked. Lena nodded. "At my apartment. But I think someone's been there. The locks were broken last week." Ethan rubbed his temples. "If this gets out, Crosstech could fall apart. But if what you're saying is true, the world deserves to know." Before they could speak further, the bell above the door jingled. A man in a leather jacket stepped in, tall, cold-eyed, pretending to check the menu but watching them through the reflection of the window. Lena froze. "That's him," she whispered. "He was here yesterday too." Ethan stood calmly and walked toward the counter, pretending to pay his bill. In the corner of his eye, he saw the man reach into his coat. Without hesitation, Ethan grabbed a cup of coffee and deliberately spilled it on himself. "Damn it," he exclaimed, staggering back. The distraction worked. Lena darted into the kitchen and out the back door. Ethan followed, and together they slipped into the alley behind the diner as the man shouted into his earpiece. "Target's moving, North Alley."